Back again. Thanks for checking out the channel. My name is Josh. We're here to review another episode of the Sandman, the Netflix series. I mean, it's on Netflix. I don't remember who made it. Somebody was telling me I think Warner Brothers made the show itself, and it's being distributed by Netflix. Although that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, because doesn't Warner Brothers have its own streaming service, or is that... Anyway, getting past the point. So, Dream? Nah, not Dream. This is Sandman, episode 2, and I will have to say... the show's picking up for me. The show's picking up a good bit. Not that I didn't like the first episode. I thought the first episode was really good. It was probably one of the better episodes of just completely like setting the stage for everything that's going to come. I was a little interested / concerned because of the time jumps in the last episode where you're like, okay, you know, you're getting invested into these people and these characters that you're starting to learn about that are... the captors of Dream, and you're like, okay, well that's, you know, it's good and cool, and I'm starting to actually know and care about these characters. But if you're time jumping 10 years and then, you know, like a lifetime almost, like, why did I just spend all this time getting to know these people if they're not going to be part of the story? And then it turns out they're absolutely still going to be part of the story in some context, so that makes sense 100%. Story picks up. If you haven't watched this episode yet, I would suggest you go watch that one before watching the review, because I will be talking about the episode and kind of the beats of the episode, and then the general consensus of what I thought about it, and then maybe where it's going, see what's happening. So you've been warned. So the show starts, picks up with Dream escaping and getting back to his realm. Getting back to his realm and running into Lucian, I believe is her name. I'm pretty sure that's just like his number one in command, or like right-hand man, woman, or Dream, whatever the context may be in that case, in the Dream realm. Yeah, that's what it was. So he lands there, and he's back in the vastness of that, and Lucian comes to bring him back to his palace, and then she's kind of laying out the fact that, you know, it's been a while clearly since you've been gone, and things have changed. People, dreams, and different things that Dream created. Wow, that's gonna get a little... The actual characters and the creatures that Dream created for his realm, whether they be dreams or nightmares, and all those things, like, they seemingly have lost faith more or less, and they've just kind of gone elsewhere. So you're kind of starting to see a little bit of, okay, so he's definitely, that's going to be part of the show, I'm assuming, is him having to corral and get back some of these things, much like the Nightmare, which I believe they said that his name, I don't know if it's been said, I think it was said in this one as like Corinthian, or Corinth, something like that, which is Boyd Holbrook's character, which again, he has a brief appearance in this one, but he steals the show most of the time. It's pretty solid. Anyway, they get back to the Dream Realm, and they're just kind of going through, showing the castle, like everything is just more or less dilapidated and kind of destroyed. And it starts to show a little bit of Dream's actual powers as he was trying to rebuild, and you come to find out that he's, without his tools, his weapons, you know, the ruby, the mask, the sand, things like that, that he's just very underpowered. Underpowered, I guess, as to what he normally is. So he's trying to rebuild some stuff, and he just can't really do it because he's so weak. And it comes to grips with, he just needs to power up, but he either needs rest, or he needs to find some pieces of himself that he's put into other things to bring back, so he can have more of his energy back. And he's asking if there's anything really left that he's created that he could take back. And that's when we get introduced to Cain and Abel. So Cain and Abel are a couple of the characters in this one that are, of course, they're representations of the biblical Cain and Abel, the first murderer, the first one to be murdered, so to speak. I guess, I think that's what the story goes like, something like that. And in this case, he goes to visit them real quick. They're very happy to see him. They're definitely slightly crazy, of course. It's been 100 years since they've seen their... I don't know if they call him master, I believe, but I don't know if he's just as a dictator, ruler, whatever. He's the god entity. So it's been a while since they've seen him, and he tells them the situation, and he needs to take back something that he gave them, and they're 100% on board with it. And the whole time you've been getting to see Cain and Abel, you've also got to experience Gregory, and Gregory is this super cute. He's either gargoyle or dragon. I definitely thought he was a dragon, but I think he's actually technically a gargoyle. But I mean, it's a dream, so you can make it however you want to. They just look a little different. Showing him he's basically like a dog. I mean, he's like a little puppy that's just... he was flying around, and Cain and Abel were working with him to try and, get him down and help with these different things. And turns out that's what Dream needs to take back. And by take back, I mean, it's basically just take all the energy that's there and reabsorb it back into him, basically, in effect, killing Gregory. And it's definitely... I was a little taken aback just because it's a CGI dragon thing that I've seen for like 10 minutes, but I did not enjoy that scene. It was very poignant and powerful, but it was sad that he was able to do. I mean, both Cain and Abel volunteered themselves, but it didn't work that way. So, and Dream himself asked Gregory, and Gregory was good with it. I mean, what can you do? But little ramifications come back in that one that make it a little bit better. So he does that one, and then just exits quickly, and they're kind of... Cain and Abel are a little upset about it, and then of course Cain murders Abel because that's what they do consistently. Continually, apparently with these two, it's more or less like they're in a loop. They live together, but Cain always murders Abel, and he buries him, and it's very interesting. It's kind of funny, and it's kind of really morbid, but also I enjoyed it a good bit. So after that, basically he was getting his power together to figure out a way to go summon the fates, so he could ask the witches, the fates. I guess they're kind of like the sirens almost. They're not the sirens, but in Greek mythology, when they would go actually see the witches, I forgot what their actual names were, but they were the witches that they shared like an eye, and they could see in the future and things like that. So it was very similar, where he needed to get his power up so he could summon them to figure out what he needed to do to get his tools back. And that involved him... This is where the show is getting really cool too, about how he navigates dreams, and he had to go into other people's dreams to get certain things or build up enough power, or to be able to trade with the witches so they give him what he wants. It's just very interesting, but it's actually like this cool dock they go down, and it's just very still water, and they started to show how he actually uses it as a portal or like a doorway, and it was just really cool. So I like that. He grabs a couple of different things. I mean, it looks like he's grabbing ingredients to make a cake, except it's not really a cake. He's just summoning the fates. And he grabbed the precarious egg. Looked like one of those things, if you've ever seen the Chris Farley movie Wagons East. Is Wagons East? No, that's John Candy. Another great movie if you ever check that out. Chris Farley was Almost Heroes. There's definitely a scene where they break an egg, and they need an eagle egg, and it's very important. So it definitely makes sense that they need that. Oh, that was a really weird rabbit hole. Anyway, he's gathering all these things. He ends up calling the fates, even though his buddy Lucian has told him that maybe they don't really tell you exactly what you want to hear, and they typically tell you riddles. And of course, it's always, you're not going to get the greatest answer. She actually suggested that maybe reach out to the other endless, like the brothers and sisters, for help, and that also came to grips pretty quickly that there's not necessarily a good, healthy relationship between the siblings, as in they all knew that he was kept captive for 100 years and did nothing. So I don't think he's sitting too high on them right now, but I have a feeling they're definitely going to come into play coming up, which can be kind of cool. So to get back to the fates, and basically they're given 3 questions. He gets to ask each one of the sisters a question, and they'll give him an answer. So basically he just asked about his tools, like we talked about before, but the way he asked them got a little more specific each time, because it was like, what happened to my talisman? And it was like, oh, this is what happened right afterwards. And he's like, oh, well, where's it at now? Like, you get 1 question. So he has to move on to the next one. So he's got like seeds on how to start and maybe get after each one of these. And that's kind of where the story is seemingly going to be going, is you're definitely going to be going after his tools to power back up, I'm guessing, and then probably bring everything back that escaped the dream realm back to the dream realm so he can build it back up to what it was. So it's looking pretty sweet. I think there's going to be a lot of twists and turns in that, of course. By the end, he did actively drop off the egg. It wasn't actually for the fates, it was for something else, and turned out as Abel was raising out of his grave after he came back to life from being murdered by Cain, he found the egg, and as soon as he took it inside, they were fighting a little bit over who brought the egg, and then they realized that it's another gargoyle. So Dream did help replace Gregory, even though he made that big sacrifice. So that was pretty good. I mean, it made it a little more okay to have to go through that first scene, but definitely was a challenge. I mean, to get through, just because I love animals, and especially if I had a pet dragon, I've always wanted one of those. Would be sweet. And then basically the show gets kind of doesn't end with that. Basically, it goes to where Dream is going to be looking for, and Dream is actually looking for one of the Constantine. And I don't know if that actually has anything to do with John Constantine from DC or not, but I believe it's Joanna's Constantine that he's looking for, who is the mistress of the guy that kidnapped him in the first place and held him hostage, that had the baby, that took all the tools and stuff like that. So you kind of catch up to her where she's at now, as well as a brief scene between her and Corinth Boyd Holbrook, where you kind of find out that she's pretty prepared, so to speak, which ultimately leads to another scene between Boyd Holbrook and Lucien as they were talking about Dream, and Boyd Holbrook does kind of plant the seed that Dream ultimately doesn't care about Lucien or really anything, and let's see if that comes back and if he's trying to recruit some more, but basically he's out of there. But back to Constantine, she's definitely, I think she's been planning for this one and getting kind of ready. I believe her son has the ruby, or had it at some point, and it showed her son. And it's kind of interesting again because of the time gaps and stuff like that. So some people stay younger. So her son looks like the same age or older than her. And he's another actor. He's been in so many things. I can't think of his name right now, but he was in like some of the Harry Potter movies. I believe he was Professor Lupin, or Lupus, whatever, the one that turned into a werewolf. And he's just literally been, I think he was Ares in Wonder Woman. And he's been in a bunch of stuff, but hopefully I'm sure he'll be a good added addition to the cast here. So it kind of talks about, she kind of lets him know that, somebody escaped and it's time to get ready for something else. And that's kind of where the show ends. And then we're going to be going into episode 3. So end all be all, kind of like I said at the beginning, this one definitely picked up the pace a good bit as far as action and what the actual story's going to be like. Because the first one, again, I didn't think was bad, but it was a little slower. A lot of the plot, a lot of just figuring out the world and figuring out what's going on. But this one started to put it into action, and I'm definitely curious to see where it goes from here, and how they portray Dream. Because currently, I mean, he's the main character, and you're kind of viewing this whole thing through him. But he doesn't have a lot of character, which is maybe his characters. I mean, he's very obviously quiet. He's been alone for 100 years not talking. But he's also an endless being that's basically all powerful in these different ways. So I'm not sure how his character's supposed to be, but we'll see if he has a little bit more development as the show goes on. But I'm very curious to see what happens between most of the characters, actually. So the show's got me hooked. We'll be back for episode 3. Let me know what you think is going to happen. Did you guys like episode 2? I dug it a good bit. I hope number 3, and they all just continue to get better and better and better. Yeah. Peace out.